You can see in this live view from an all-terrain vehicle at the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Some of the RSE Energia technical personnel are working to remove the lines from the large parachute from the Soyuz descent module. Inside that descent module, Mazurk and Van de Hei and Akaba are waiting to be extracted one by one. The crew should be extracted shortly following its on-time landing at 8:31 p.m. Central Time, 8:31 a.m. Wednesday morning in Kazakhstan. And now the all-terrain vehicles are repositioned close to the descent module, a great view of the Soyuz MS-06, and you can see that ladder set up alongside of the spacecraft. The crew will be extracted from the top of the Soyuz. Alexander Mazurkin, the commander, who's in the center seat, will be the first out. Once again, a good view of the Soyuz MS-06. We'll get that signal back momentarily. The spacecraft landed upright on time about 10 minutes ago at 8:31 p.m. Central Time, about 90 miles southeast of Zhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan. And the RSE Energia personnel are repositioning the ladder on the proper side of the Soyuz vehicle, through which the crew will be extracted a short time from now. Again, there are two hatches from which the crew can be extracted on a Soyuz spacecraft. For a landing in which the spacecraft is pulled over onto its side, there's a side hatch that they extract the crew from. In this case, having landed upright, this will be the more traditional extraction of the crew from the top hatch. And the first crew member that will be removed from the spacecraft will be Alexander Mazurkin. This is Mission Control Houston. It's been about 14 minutes since the landing of the Soyuz MS-06 on the steppe of Kazakhstan. You see members of the NASA team of the search and recovery forces who flew from Zhezkazgan by Russian Mi-8 helicopters to the landing site. The Soyuz landed upright, obviously, and the RSE Energia technical personnel are in the process of beginning the extraction of the crew one by one down that ladder. The likelihood is they'll be put in reclining chairs for a few minutes to get their land legs. We'll be standing by for further disposition of where they intend to take the crew, whether it will be inside an inflatable medical tent. We're still waiting for word as to whether or not both a NASA Gulfstream jet and a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft will be dispatched from the staging city of Karaganda to the forward staging point in Zhezkazgan to expedite the recovery of the crew. These are members of the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces coordinating the further and future disposition of the crew once they're extracted from the Soyuz spacecraft. Landing occurred some 17 minutes ago on time at 8:31 p.m. Central Time, 8:31 a.m. Wednesday morning there in Kazakhstan. This is Mission Control Houston. Again, you're looking at the Soyuz MS-06 spacecraft on the ground as the extraction of the crew members is underway. Part of the search and recovery team, the NASA support team, included NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt, who is at the landing site right by the spacecraft. Dan, if you can hear me, tell us what is going on as we watch the action here via the satellite link from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, sure thing, Rob. I got you loud and clear. Sounds like you're already getting videos. As you can see, the capsule's down on the ground, landed upright. We actually got to watch it come down under the chutes quite a bit, and then it disappeared into a cloud layer. There's clouds, I think the last we heard were about 400 meters or so off the ground, but pretty cloudy, but good visibility besides that. Cold temperatures, but not as cold as it's been. But so far, successful landing. You can see the search and recovery forces are up on top of the Soyuz right now. They're going to start pulling the crew out any moment now.
Dan, despite the weather conditions and the uncertainty about movement of planes and so forth, it looked like the helicopters landed in very swift fashion. And of course, a Soyuz landing upright only helps to expedite the extraction of the crew, right?
Yeah, we got lucky. We've been dodging weather, it seems, for the past couple of days. Things were looking pretty bleak until yesterday. We actually had quite a bit of rain, turned into freezing rain. So some icy conditions, but luckily the weather moved through a lot faster than was anticipated, and we were able to have a nominal landing today. So it's good to be out here. We're worried we might get stuck in airports and stuff, but all the teams made it out, and pretty soon we'll be seeing these crew members.
Is the inflatable medical tent going to be erected and in play following the extraction of the crew?
The plan is for the tent. I don't see it being set up quite yet, but as you might be able to hear, we still have some helicopters landing. A team has come ahead of time on a series of all-terrain vehicles, the ATVs. We actually had some of the NASA team camp out last night with them just in case the helicopters weren't able to make it. But as far as the last plan communicated, the medical tent should be set up here. All three crew members going to be taking part in that field test experiment, and the nominal plan has them doing it right here at the landing zone.
And I don't know if you've heard anything more recent there on the ground, but we're still waiting for a final decision as to whether or not the crew will be flown in helicopters back to Zhezkazgan for an expedited return there, or whether they'll go back to Karaganda where the GCTC and NASA planes are.
I expect to find out shortly, but last word, the nominal plan is going to be to have the crew go to Zhezkazgan. And it looks like there we go, our first crew member out. Looks like we got Mazurkin coming down the slide first. And so with that, our center seater, our Soyuz commander is out. He's going to get carried over now. They have the stairs set up already, just a few feet away. And next up, our NASA crew members will be coming out shortly.
Dan, appreciate all of the info, and we'll be looking forward to further information here shortly on where the crew is going to go and the inflatable medical tent, and whether or not the field testing that is part of this post-flight medical data collection, whether that will be in play today given the conditions out there.
Yep, and even if they aren't able to do it in the field test always has a backup of doing it back at the airport that we deploy to. So that is still on the table if they aren't able to deploy the medical tent.
And Dan, as you are speaking, we're hearing that both the GCTC plane, the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft, and the NASA Gulfstream jet will be relocating to Zhezkazgan from Karaganda. They've just received approval to do that. As we look at Alexander Mazurkin, the Soyuz commander, who has now logged 334 days in space on his 2 long-duration flights. So it appears as if you and the other helicopters will be flying the 30 minutes, the shorter distance, to Zhezkazgan along with the crew members for the disposition of their activities before they split up to head back to their respective homes.
Yep, well, copy that. All right, we got a couple more helicopters coming in, and we're going to be pulling these crews out, so I'm going to get back to work here. It's good talking to you as always, and I'll talk to you again soon, bro.
All right, Dan, have a safe trip home. Dan Hewitt, NASA Public Affairs Officer with the Search and Recovery Forces in Kazakhstan. Joe Acaba, out of the Soyuz spacecraft, having completed his 3rd flight into space and a total of 306 days in space. And as he was for both launch and today's entry and landing, Acaba seated in a chair to the right of Alexander Mazurkin. Mark Vande Hei will be the last out of the spacecraft, and he'll be placed in a chair to the left of Alexander Mazurkin. Again, we've, in the last few minutes, received word from the Search and Recovery Forces that both the NASA Gulfstream jet in Karaganda and the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training aircraft will be dispatched from Karaganda to the Zhezkazgan airport to receive the crew, as Vande Hei and Acaba will board that NASA jet in Zhezkazgan for the trip back to Houston. Mazurkin will board the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training aircraft for the flight back to his home and his training base in Star City, Russia. And there is Mark Vande Hei, all 3 crew members now out of the spacecraft.
Joe, welcome back.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, views of Joe Acaba, Mark Vandehei, Alexander Mazurkin at the landing site, being attended to by their flight surgeons and NASA nurses. They will be boarding respective helicopters soon to be flown about 30 minutes to the northwest from the landing site to the town of Jezkazgan, where the NASA Gulfstream jet that had landed several days ago in Karaganda, along with a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft, will be relocated from Karaganda to Jezkazgan. That because of the improving weather conditions at the landing site and at the staging cities.
There were some changes. I particular.
This is Mission Control Houston. It has been about 29 minutes since the landing of Soyuz MS-06 in a remote landing site to the southeast of the town of Jezkazgan. You're looking at the 3 crew members enjoying some fresh air after 168 days in space. A journey of 71.1 million miles at an end. Alexander Mazurkin, the Soyuz commander, right in the field of view. On the right of your screen, NASA astronaut Mark Vandehei having completed his first flight into space of 168 days.
A nominal landing and everything was fine. There was nothing unexpected. There were no malfunctions, and we're very glad to see you. Thank you.
Oh, no. It's not interesting. It's, but the nice level there is awesome.
What about the tent?
No, it really wasn't. The part was when we were, when the G's got to about 4 inches. I can actually feel it.
And as you can see, members of the search and recovery force is about to hoist Alexander Mazurkin in his chair. They'll be moved, we believe, to an inflatable medical tent nearby to get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits into more comfortable flight clothing and to receive their first medical tests following their return to Earth, which culminated in an on-time, on-target landing at 8:31 p.m. Central Time.
Was the food good? It was excellent.
And as you can see, the orange tent has been erected near the spacecraft. Alexander Mazurkin has already been brought inside. Akaba and Vandehei to follow. RSC Energia personnel also clamoring around the spacecraft to remove some of the initial cargo that was brought home from the International Space Station. And you can see Vandehei and Akaba both being assisted in their chairs into the inflatable medical tent. Again, the plan is that they will get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits. They'll get into more comfortable flight clothing, receive initial medical tests.
Why I was stopping? Let's go. Let's go.
The plan calls for a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft and the NASA Gulfstream jet that flew several days ago into the Karaganda Airport, the main staging city to the north east of the landing site, for those planes to be relocated to the airport in Zhezkazgan, just 90 miles away from this landing site you're looking at. That will help expedite the crew members to fly in search and recovery helicopters only about 30 minutes to Zhezkazgan, where they ultimately will split up, with Vandehei and Akaba boarding that NASA jet for the flight back to Houston, and from Mazurkin to board the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to fly back to his training base and his home at Star City outside of Moscow.